The life of our protagonist is completely ruined like a true loser. While he thinks everyone went to college, but he's still doing nothing. He's holding on to a job for now because the pay is decent, but his goal is to leave as soon as he's admitted to the university exam. Our protagonist then receives a punch in his back. While he's confused, a bully explains to his friend that this is how to deliver a well-applied blow. After that, the delinquents start to mock the man, asking him how much he gets paid to do this. In his mind, our hero believes others shouldn't be startled by this because he's already an adult. Moreover, it's not like these guys intimidate him, so he decides to teach a lesson to the students. With a trembling voice, the man calls the attention of the rowdy students and warns that he earns 60 rias per hour. Given this, the worker asks the kids how old they are, which leaves them confused about his sanity. The protagonist wants his stutter to be damned, and while calling them brats, he scolds them because he's an adult and he's working. However, the speech doesn't work, and the student from before lands a kick on his leg. While our hero is down on the ground, the students take the opportunity to further humiliate the worker. Then the boys leave, and the protagonist thinks that the stutter only starts when he is confronted in this way. Moreover, he believes they won't be able to continue with this forever, and that they will work for him when they graduate. After punching the ground, the protagonist reiterates his dream of passing college and states that one day he will make them regret. Especially those guys who ruined his life, they are definitely living like bums now. Especially the demon Jang Anshul, who in his mind must be all messed up. Introducing himself as the boss of the company, Jang Anshul greets our hero. The same is in shock, and Jang asks if he's working part-time. While holding the business card, our hero faces the cruel reality that his former tormentor is now a successful man. While showing off his BMW, the boss's friends arrive at the place, and one of them congratulates him for the grand opening. Jang greets his old classmates and claims that everyone is doing very well, while the referred also try to show their achievements so as not to be outdone. Jang asks if this is a new BMW and nostalgically states that it reminds him of his school days. His friends laugh because in school time they only made trouble, and one of them commented that the guy who intimidated children has now become a boss. But Jang is disillusioned with what he sees and thinks this can't be happening. For the protagonist, these guys shouldn't be in these conditions at this moment, but should be riding a stolen motorcycle or something like that. Someone like him being called boss and driving around in imported cars is very unfair. With that, one of the men notices our protagonist working. He asks if the man isn't his old schoolmate Kim Jin Jin Woo Woo. The delinquents begin to remember their old stuttering friend, and that his real name is Kim Jin Woo. Kim, however, lowers his cap trying to hide his face and thinks that as soon as he receives his payment, he will bail out. Then Jang squats in front of the protagonist and confirms his identity. He reminded him that they were in the same class and asked him how he has been. Jang in turn explained that he had no idea at the time but was very immature in the past. But Kim is thoughtful with his apology, because he never imagined that one day he would receive something like this from a guy who ruined his life. Jang offers some money to our hero while telling him to leave the payment aside and use this for the taxi. But Kim notices the discrepancy between the man's condition and his own. Moreover, he thinks that obviously he won't be able to accept, and tells the man that he's going too far, which piques his curiosity. While stuttering, Kim asks for a more appropriate and sincere apology, because he's only living like this because of all of them. These guys who made him get to this state and who left him stuttering. Jang takes more money out of his pocket to falsely try to compensate his old classmate, and claims that honestly he doesn't remember everything, but he's very sorry. However, hearing him say he doesn't remember awakens Kim's anger, which makes him throw all the money into the air and run away. Jang is worried and tries to warn Kim of something, stating that the place where the protagonist is jumping from is not a sidewalk, and that after that there are 3 underground floors. But it was too late for Kim, who fell from the top of the building while thinking that Jang mocked his name until his end. In free fall, he never imagined he would die in such a pathetic way, even in his end still remaining below ankle. Finally, he expresses his grudge against Jang, who made his life a hell, thinking that if he could go back in time, he would go to where it all started, and would put all the pain he suffered on top of Jang and his companions, cursing him even after dying. In a reality shock, Kim falls to the floor of what appears to be a classroom. He looks around confused, not knowing where he is and at what moment, but he starts to understand when he pays more attention calmly. This was his old classroom, but just now he was at the company, so he wondered what would have happened. Kim thinks this is a dream of his high school years, but someone is already tormenting him. The man says that if he hits, it's an immediate faint, and another one agrees. While looking for another ideal spot, Kim convinces himself that this is just a dream, and that these guys look old even in his school time. Because he believes it's a dream, Kim slaps a bully in the face. But the man doesn't like it at all and starts to beat up our hero. That's when he realizes that the pain is real, and that in fact everything is real, not just a simple dream. Kim realized that he really went back to the past to his second year of high school. A delinquent then approached and asked why the punching bag was so noisy. Revealing himself as Jang, he addresses Kim. Kneeling on the ground, surprise takes over the eyes of the protagonist of the work. He questions himself if they are really calling him by the name of Kim, remaining confused while not sure of his identity, and tries to think of the reason for his other self standing in front of him. But when looking in the mirror, an unprecedented truth is revealed. At this moment, Jang is in the body of Kim Jinwoo. After that, the grudge of Kim's soul warned that he had said he would curse him and now sent him to try to go through all the pain he went through. Jang then realized that he went back to the past and met the biggest piece of trash of all. But the problem is that this great trash is actually his past self. Jang lands a punch in the middle of Kim's face. He remembered the agony he made his classmates suffer and believed he had a lot of fun during his high school. Doing evil to the losers just showed their fragility. It was a place where you could live like a king if you knew how to fight well. This was something that losers would never be able to identify with. He thought that the kids who were preparing for the future were losers and that he was living happily in the present with the strength he had, and to protect his throne he trained MMA. Your colleagues commented on him becoming a professional, but he said he was just doing it for fun. All the adults spoke ill of him, saying it was obvious what would happen to people like him after graduation. And they continued saying this day after day, so he felt somewhat agonized. But in the end, he really had a talent for beating people up, and as soon as he graduated, he debuted as a professional athlete. Using the signing bonus, he set up a shop and became a successful man without ever looking at a textbook. He wondered what had happened to the guys who clung to textbooks and studied for long periods. But there he was, one of them, Kim Jinjin Woo-woo. And it turned out that losers were still losers even after growing up. Yang remembered Kim mentioning this was his third attempt to get into a university and felt pity for him. So, as an act of pity for a miserable person, he handed a few bucks to his old colleague, saying he was on a fast track to success. But now it was him getting a kick to the face. And his other self, while beating him up, confirmed his theory that bullying others shows how useless they are. Jang in turn kept questioning why he was being beaten up by his past self. Jang Anshul, 21 years old, is currently trapped in the body of a loser he mistreated 3 years ago. Because now he is Jim Jinwoo. While applying a chokehold to our protagonist, a man with a scarred eyebrow calls out to Anshul and asks if that's how you apply a chokehold, while Kim, now Jang, writhes in pain. Kim thinks this bastard did nothing but suck up to him in the past, and now he's hurting him. Moreover, the guy is using a technique reserved only for losers like him because his stance is totally wrong. Both Jangs then simultaneously think that in a chokehold, the arm should be twisted further back. And when the man with the scarred eyebrow follows the advice, Kim contorts in pain. Thrown to the ground, he thinks everyone is a piece of shit. Moreover, his fist is crying upon seeing this. Kim considers wiping the floor with the delinquents' faces, but surely understands that if he tries, he will be easily beaten. At this period, his past self was weak against ground fights, but anyway, everything will be over when he finishes off this piece of trash. But suddenly, a voice appears in his mind saying he will regret moving his fist. The voice asks if Jang doesn't want to return to his body, which leaves him extremely confused. He wonders who he is talking to, and the present Jang approaches our hero, saying he will try to apply a guillotine for the first time. The past Jang wraps his arm around Kim's neck, saying he believes this is how it fits. And after that, he applies force, choking his colleague. Kim trembles with rage at his former self and thinks he will finish him off. Because after all, Jang remembers practicing the guillotine all day, so this claim of doing it for the first time was just pretense. Despite this, the stance is perfect, as expected from his past self, who can make someone pass out in 5 seconds. Faced with this, Jang fainted and woke up in a dark place with that voice, telling him it warned he would go through the same pain he inflicted. This scares the businessman, not knowing what's happening and where he is. But the voice continued and asked what he thought about becoming the failure he mistreated. Realizing the current voice is the same as before, Jang discovers what's behind it all, and asks that light it is Kim Jinjin Woo-woo. In the face of this offense, the voice angrily confirms that it really is Kim Jin-woo. While laughing, Kim asks how the man feels about experiencing it all. Realizing Jang still hadn't fully understood, he explains that doing this was the least he could do, because the man ruined his life just for being bigger than him. Moreover, Jang enjoyed what he lived and had a lot of fun like a true king. So this is the curse placed on him, and he will be the man who will have fun watching Jang from now on. Realizing the gravity of the problem, Jang begs Kim not to do this, and promises to treat him well when he returns to his body, so he asks for the curse to be undone. However, Kim decides to give a hint on how to break the curse, thinking that there must be hope for there to be despair. So he warns that to break the current curse, there are 2 conditions. The first is that Jang stops the loser life incidents. Because of him, many problems developed, causing him to start stuttering and ruining his life completely. Kim claims he wished he wasn't alive for all 365 days of the year, but will never forget the 4 incidents. Because of these 4 incidents, his life ended. It was so bad that just thinking about it made him nervous. Trying to participate in the conversation, Jang claims to remember them all and apologizes. But he thinks he's completely screwed because he doesn't remember any of them, and questions which 4 incidents Kim is referring to, because in 365 days of torment, he can't remember just 4. However, Jang believes that in the end, as they will only involve him and his friends, he will be able to try to prevent everything. Thinking he will beat everyone to the point they can't even speak a word, he apologizes to his past self. However, Kim appears in front of him and asks if he is thinking of just beating everyone. Jang's mission is to stop the loser life events, so if he does it before the incidents, the boys will be scared and the incidents won't happen. Shouting at the voice, Jang asks what he should do if he should just suffer while going through them, but Kim warns that he doesn't care about small details. But he should keep in mind that if the story changes too much, the loser life incidents won't happen. Accepting the imposed conditions, Jang asks what the next condition will be. Informing that it's something simple, the voice explains that he must correct his past self, Jang Uncle. Kim bursts into a fit of laughter and concludes by saying to try this with this loser body if he thinks he can, reiterating to try to make his past self turn over a new leaf. Already in Kim's body, Jang thinks his mission will be very difficult because with this fragile body, he will have to stop the 4 incidents. And besides that, correct his past self, making him become a decent human being. Already in the classroom, Kim trembles with rage while putting his feet on the table. He remembered that Jang's guillotine made him pass out for the entire lunch break, so he didn't eat anything. Kim bangs his hand on the table, questioning how he will stop these incidents and reform his past self. This draws everyone's attention, and he continues thinking that firstly, he doesn't even know what these incidents are. One of his friends with a lock on his glasses asks Kim to be quiet. Kim asked what the problem was with those glasses, and the man said it was Anshul to put it on, telling him to try to guess his birthday. While questioning whether he really did things like that, he thought that despite everything, it was quite funny. But anyway, his chubby friend asks Kim to be quiet because they will be done if he wakes up Anshul. The chubby kid asks if Kim remembers that Anshul had determined that while he was asleep, only the 3rd row could speak. This leaves Kim disturbed because he had no idea this was happening since he only slept during the entire day. Suddenly, the teacher enters the classroom asking the students to be quiet. The teacher asks where they left off last time and asks the students to return to their seats and open their books. However, the teacher notices something at the back of the room. He asks who's the boy sleeping behind our protagonist and asks Kim to wake him up. Everyone's attention in the room turns to surprise and despair for our protagonist. Everyone waits for Kim's decision with anguish, and Kim wonders why everyone is looking at him that way. But he understands that he must wake up his sleeping self. Kim then slaps the head of his past self, while thinking that waking someone up is simple. However, this simple action leaves all the students disbelieving. Kim doesn't understand why everyone is worried about it and mocks his old self who sleeps during class. But Anshul starts to wake up and looks at Kim in an intimidating way as if he is about to commit an atrocity. Jinwoo's friend named Seoljai despairs and questions how Kim dares to slap the head of his sleeping master. Sewell thinks that Kim should hurry and beg for forgiveness on his knees, but he believes that all this is very strange, questioning why nothing is happening between the two. But he came to the conclusion that Jang Anshul would never think in a million years that someone like Kim Jinwoo would dare hit him. So Anshul must be thinking that it's all just a simple dream. But the teacher asks for student number 17 to go to the board to solve the question. He asks who is number 17 and asks for the student to appear now. While checking the attendance list, the students think they are done for because number 17 is their master Jang Anshul. Upon checking the list, the teacher asks for student Jang to appear, and the others think that this teacher always applies punishments to those who do not solve the equation. Sewell believes that the break will be terrifying because he will surely take it out on them. But an unexpected action awakens Sewell's curiosity. Kim Jinwoo accidentally goes to the board to solve the equation, still believing he is Anshul. The teacher asks if he is the referred student and Kim affirms he is Jang. Sewell understands everything and thinks it's because of the past event. To make up for the crime of hitting his master's head, he accepted the punishment in his place to be forgiven. Sewell thinks it's much better to take this punishment in his place because it's just a light smack on the butt. Suddenly, Jang Anshul starts laughing and states, satisfied that it's very funny. While smiling, he wonders what Kim is trying to do with this. Later that same day, Anshul hits Kim in the body for no reason. It's a knee without reason that crushes Kim's face. As if that wasn't enough, he also landed a kick in the protagonist's face. Jang said it was so absurd that he thought it had been a dream. He heard it was Kim who hit his head while he was asleep and could never have imagined such a thing. He claims that our hero tried to let it pass being punished by the teacher in his place. But Kim's expression begins to exude immense anger against his old self. Jang asks if the beatings weren't enough and Kim thinks he'll end his past self. However, the voice from before informs again that if the story is changed, he will not be able to return to his original body. With that, Kim understands what must be done and with a foolish face apologizes to Anshul, receiving a kick from Jang in his jaw that completely detonates his jaw. Jang asks his friend Simpson why he became the bad guy there because all this stems from the bad education he gave to Kim. Kim can't help but think that all these delinquents are trash and wonders what the little shit Simpson is whispering to his old self. Anshul approaches a girl who is sitting straightening her hair. Her name is Park Dabin. She asks what it's about and Jang informs that he needs something from her head, which leaves her confused. Jang takes a strand of the girl's hair and asks Simpson if just one strand is good. Simpson then ties Park's hair strand between Kim and Sewell's wrists. He informs that if this hair comes loose, they will be screwed. He also says that he will be inspecting every break. Simpson says they will also be done for if they swap it for a strand of hair from another girl, and Jang can't hold back his laughter. Kim thinks this is a joke, but it's to be expected from his childish classmates. However, Sewell breaks this idea that it will be an easy task and says he needs to go to the bathroom. On the way to the restroom, several girls mock the two, using the possibility of dating one of the students as an offense. Sewell asks if this means they will also have to do their business together, and Kim tells his friend to shut up. In his thoughts, Kim thought Simpson was making a serious mistake by teasing the guy he sucked up to. He also realizes that other students considered by Jang as losers are also mocking him. Kim never thought he would go to the bathroom with a nerd like Sewell, and that if it weren't for the curse, he would have ended it already. Suddenly, the hair strand breaks, which leaves Kim terrified. He says his friend can't even do a simple thing right, and because of that, now they will be beaten. Then, in an act of desperation and reflection, Kim realizes that the great Jang uncle is really freaking out over a simple broken hair strand. But Sewell claims that even going through all this, they can't lose their spirits and they must endure until they graduate. Sewell says no matter how much they suffer, if they lose their calm, they will be doing what the bullies want, so they must get revenge by graduating and making money. Kim looks at his otaku friend in surprise. He doesn't understand what's going on in Sewell's head to be preaching to him because he is not a loser like his colleague. But Sewell extends his hand with several packages of hair strands. He informs that his collection has many hairs left over, and Kim sees his colleague as a madman for collecting girls' hair. Suddenly, Simpson appears on the scene and lands a kick right in Kim's face, which leaves the protagonist completely disoriented. Simpson asks Kim why the hair is broken and if his kick is good. Finally, he tells Jinwoo to follow him because they need to do the Dempsey role, and without choice, our hero accepts. In the second block in room 6, Jang asks what they were doing because they were late. He explains that the little round is about to begin, so he asks everyone to get ready. Jang asks Kim to get in posture and warns that if he doesn't, he won't be able to take responsibility for what will happen next. Anshul states that he will start with a Dempsey, and Kim doesn't understand what's coming. The three then begin to train a Dempsey row afterimage under Jang's tutelage. Kim believes this is quite embarrassing, not understanding why his past self would spend his precious time doing these things. Jang in turn delivers a powerful attack on the protagonist's stomach that makes him spit blood. He explains that the second afterimage is the weak point, and Kim doesn't understand how this trash can consider himself a person. Our protagonist thinks he really wants to end everyone with all the will of his soul, but this man is him. Kim wants to challenge everyone again and again, but the delinquent is his past self. Simpson gets irritated and slaps Kim on the head, calling him useless for not being able to perform even a simple afterimage properly. In this situation, Kim thinks that Simpson is not Anko, and that his fist is crying with everything that is happening. Then the protagonist thinks he doesn't care about the story anymore and should just wipe the floor with everyone's face. But the voice explains again that if the story is changed, there will be no way for Jang to return to his original body. Therefore, wanting very much to return to his old body, Kim accepts his cruel fate once again and says he will try to do the Dempsey role again. Later in the restroom, our hero relieves himself. Even in this moment of intimacy and hygiene, Kim can't suppress his anger towards those delinquents. He thought Simpson was always sneaking up behind him, but now he had the courage to belittle him, calling him a loser. However, Kim tried to calm down, believing his old colleague was doing it just to suck up to his old self. But suddenly Simpson appeared behind Kim, pulling up his pants and questioning who let him urinate alone. In reaction to that, our protagonist's urine flies towards his face, drenching him completely. Faced with this, Simpson just mocks Kim while stating that it is quite unpleasant. He comments that the urine spread all over the protagonist's face and asks if now Kim will urinate with his pants up. Amidst so many jokes, our protagonist is already on the verge of collapse. Our hero calls for Simpson, while he believes his colleague is crazy. Kim starts to huff with anger, and the delinquent is outraged by this, telling him to come receive his dose of discipline. However, Jinwoo locks the bathroom door. He also takes off his jacket, wrapping it around the handle in an attempt to block the entrance, and tells Simpson that manners make the man, while he waits confused about what is to come. Red with anger and taking off his clothes and glasses, Kim calls the delinquent a piece of trash. The voice interferes again, informing about the course of the story, but Jang doesn't care anymore. The veins on Simpson's face pop out as he witnesses such disrespect, and he tries to say something, but the protagonist tells him to shut up. Kim smashes his glasses with rage and says he will massage him in every piece that he will never forget. Face to face with Simpson, our protagonist prepares for the upcoming massage, reaffirming his catchphrase, but the delinquent looks startled at something that catches his attention. As he looks at Kim's shirt, the student can't help but laugh, realizing it is a SpongeBob shirt. While preparing a low kick to our protagonist's legs, Simpson comments that it has been a long time since he last did Ashibarai on him. But Kim lands a counterattack on the delinquent and begins to explain about the Ashibarai. Simpson falls, hitting his head on the floor, and doesn't understand anything that is happening. He gets deeply irritated, and Kim finishes his explanation that the ashibarai should be done while the foot sweeps the ground, not the air. Somewhat embarrassed, Simpson gets up, commenting that the floor is slippery and that no one cares about cleaning. He then regains his anger and tries to land a punch on Kim, who dodges, and he lands a powerful blow to his ribs that almost makes him faint. Simpson places his hands on the affected area while wondering why it hurts so much. For it is but a simple punch from a skinny skeleton like Jinwoo. The delinquent contemplates whether our hero has been practicing sports, and the protagonist explains that the punch hurt more because he hit where the liver resides. In a fit of rage, the student lunges at Kim, thinking it doesn't matter since he is taller and stronger, so it will be fine as long as he grabs him. However, Angel still remembers how to defend himself from people and lands a punch on the man's chin, followed by a kick. Even with a normal body, Ankle stands out in any confrontation, but he had failed to calculate an important issue. Jang was still not accustomed to fighting with Jinwoo's body. Kim misses his punch towards Simpson and notices the lack of reach. That's when the delinquent tries to take advantage of the situation and attack our protagonist. But Kim, even with an unfavorable body, does not let himself be hit. And with a twist of the torso, he lands an elbow strike on the student's face. This was definitely a strong blow, as it left Simpson unconscious. This shattered his ego for losing to someone he considers a loser. The delinquent thinks he might be dreaming, and Kim's voice returns. She warns that the story has changed, so Angshul would be definitely doomed. Later that same day, the delinquent wakes up after his knockout. Confused, he wonders what all this is and if it really was a dream, because he would never have lost to someone like Jinwoo. Resigned, he thinks that even dreaming of being beaten by a loser is humiliating. But Kim appears in front of him, asking if Simpson really still thinks it was all just a dream. Simpson calls our protagonist an idiot and threatens him, saying he won't get away after messing with him. However, Kim confronts him, asking if he should tell everyone that a loser like him beat up the delinquent. The protagonist asks Simpson to choose whether he wants to leave school after the rumors spread or wants Kim to spread them personally. Witnessing pressure similar to that of Jang Anshul, the delinquent asks what Kim wants from him, and the hero warns that he doesn't want much. From now on, Simpson will have to report everything Anshul does and stops doing. Jinwoo details that he wants to know even the most intimate details of Jang's life, like his trips to the bathroom. The delinquent didn't understand the request, but Kim said it wasn't his business and just told him to follow the script and pretend he wasn't beaten up. Or in case he doesn't accept the proposal, Jinwoo could drag him in front of the whole school, beating him a bit more. Faced with such a threat, Simpson understands what must be done and accepts the imposed conditions with apprehension. Kim is happy to see that his plan is working and states that the two will be secret accomplices from now on. The story will not change, and on top of that, as a bonus, he gains a spy who can keep an eye on his past self. Kim thinks he should have just beaten him up from the start instead of holding back, because the story won't change until the rumor spreads. As he walks through the school, Jang smiles and asks if it's right to the original owner of the body, Kim Jinwoo. Kim's soul watches him with disgust for the cunning being that Jang is, but could do nothing. At another time, our protagonist stretches while thinking that it relieved him, and that now he could just beat up Min-ju whenever he gets angry. In his thoughts, Jang doesn't understand why Kim goes to school in the first place, since he can't beat anyone up when he gets angry. Anyway, someone hands him a pack of cigarettes. A girl comments that she won't get caught if she makes Jinwoo hold it, and that even if they are caught, Jin can take the blame. Kim gets deeply irritated for being treated as cigarette storage, and the girls find it strange that our protagonist is responding to provocations. They comment that the hero is crazy and that they will tell Anshul about him, but Kim just wishes they would do that, because during his high school years he didn't know how to deal with girls, which is confirmed when the present Jang responds to the girls' gossip, encouraging them to beat up the boy. Park grabs Anshul's arm and asks if her Ginny is really okay, which confuses him. She calls the girls and with a malicious smile tells them to stop being mean. Kim thought Park had always been a proper girl and that her nickname was Anshul Girl, since she always followed him everywhere. Nowadays, the future Jang feels bad for her every time he thinks about it. Because she's such a nice girl, he thinks he should try to be friendly at least once. But undoing her good girl facade, Park scolds her friends and asks if they are looking for punishment. She scolds them, reiterating that they are not to call Anshul when they are smoking, which leaves the protagonist confused. He realized that this was actually his true self, and that all this time she had been acting, deceiving him. Park, in turn, slaps Kim's face while questioning what he is looking at. Kim realized that this was the real reason she was called Anshul Girl, and Park wanted to teach him a lesson for the affront. She calls for Simpson, who passes by the place, asking him to teach the child a lesson. Park states that Trash is staring at her, and the delinquent says that if it's for his dabbin, he can straighten him out. But he realized that the Trash was the man who had beaten him up before and trembled with fear. Park questions him about what he is doing and if the command is still not clear, but Kim reminds Simpson of the agreement with his intimidating facial expression. Then acting, the two leave the place while the girls notice something strange with the relationship between the two. Park thinks that Min-ju and Jinwoo are very different from their everyday selves. Cutting the tension, the girls excitedly ask Dabin what she loves most about Ankle. whether it's for his face or because of the way the uniform falls on him, and if she will confess, but Park is embarrassed by the questions. However, she begins to speak while the girl's attention is fully focused on her speech. With a weird look of love, Park states that Anchul is like a beast. The pure smell of blood emanating from a strong male was what she liked the most, not to say that Jang wasn't cool normally. But the coolest part was when he was bathed in the blood of his opponent in the ring. Park then asks if her friends don't see this beast on Anchul's back. But she gives up and starts to leave the place when she sees that her taste is unique, but one of them asks where her friend is going. And Dabin warns that she's going to talk to Mimju to properly educate Jinwoo. However, upon reaching her destination, Park saw something she had never thought possible. Kim Jinwoo, the school's failure, was holding Simpson in a chokehold. Almost fainting, Simpson tries to resist, but Kim completely dominates him. At that moment, Kim notices someone's presence in the place and gets startled. This someone was Park, who witnessed the whole unfolding of the fight between the two. She was profoundly confused by that situation, and the protagonist is discredited. He thought that now he would be screwed because he was caught beating up Minju. And if Dabin spread the word, the story would change, and then he would lose his chance to return to his original body. Reflecting on his situation, Kim with a serious expression commands Park to come to him, while thinking he was planning to at least spare the girls. Dabin is surprised by Kim's stance, not understanding what's happening since he's a loser. Yet despite everything, something catches her attention. Now the protagonist's aura also emanates the shadow of a furious animal, making Park develop feelings for Kim as well. The honey badger is an incredible wild animal. This species of badger is no joke, and by the name, you might think it's a lovely being. But it's far from it, as even snakes are prey to this animal. The record book lists it as one of the most courageous animals because it picks fights even with lions when irritated. Moreover, winning or losing doesn't matter, only its pride and will to fight. Our protagonist's way of life is that of the honey badger, always fed up and picking fights. While believing this was something incredible, Park Dabin, at 7 years old, already harbored a huge fascination for the fierce honey badgers. That ferocity of the honey badger was what Dabin felt now witnessing Kim Jinwoo, and she couldn't stop wondering why she felt this way. And with aggression, Kim curses her and orders her to come to him. Being cursed, Park gets angry with the loser student and questions Jinwoo about his speech. But looking at his face, she collapses into feelings again, leaving Kim confused. While walking through the school corridors, Kim can't stop thinking about Park Dabin. He thought she would be spreading rumors, but nothing happened. Suddenly, the two bump into each other, and Park, irritated, almost verbalizes a curse. But Kim confronted her, asking what she was about to say, which made her become sentimental again, trying to hide her embarrassment. But Kim doesn't understand the root of her motivations. He wonders why she's blushing and averting her gaze while she retreats to the corner. Kim believes that after she saw him beat Simpson, she became scared, so he corners her. He threatens her, stating that if she says anything, she'll be finished, and he believes this is working. Because like Mingyu, Kim must instill fear with his fists. However, little did our hero know that this type of behavior actually incites the girl. Putting her hand over her mouth, Park can't believe that our protagonist looked her in the eyes. She questions why she's like this in front of a loser like him. A while back on that day, a heavy rain was taking over the place. If the man went to the bathroom during the break, they would mess with him, so he went during class. The school bathroom had rumors of being haunted, and unfortunately, he ended up seeing something different. Something that was actually much scarier than any ghost could be. The man had come there to avoid Jang, but he was also there, and stating he was pleased, he asked if the student came to do his business. He told him to use the toilet because he had finished, and the student had to subject himself to such humiliation. While doing his business, he talked with the delinquent, but Jang looked at him differently, as if he was about to commit an atrocity. That day, Jang extended his hands and suffocated the man while he was evacuating for no reason. Thus, he passed out right there without a chance to defend himself. And when he woke up on the bathroom floor, he had already become the laughingstock of the entire school. The students laughed at him in droves, while Sewell couldn't defend his honor despite being blameless. In his mind, he could only think that Jang Anchol was a terrible person, and that he had screwed up. Back in the present, Kim, with high spirits, tells his friend not to lie because he never did this, but Sewell asserts it's not about him but Jang. Inside Kim's body, Jang can't believe he did that and tries to comfort his friend, saying it was just a joke that others would forget. But Sewell is skeptical about this issue because things were already very difficult for him, stating that he just wanted to go to school normally and not suffer this kind of thing like other people. He cries, saying he's trying to do his best, but it's hard. Apologizing for ruining the mood, he asks to forget what was said, because after everything, he's still happy to have Kim, a friend he can trust. Suddenly, someone appears behind Kim with arms at the height of his neck. That someone is Jang, who mounts another chokehold without reason on the protagonist, suffocating him. Kim thinks it's really crappy to be the man who receives the taunts and aggression. After passing out, Jang wakes up in his mind again. He realizes he fainted again from the blow that came from behind. He asks what it is this time to Kim Jinjin Woo Woo, questioning if he calls this a curse because it's not a big deal after all. Jane mocks, saying the cat got Kim's tongue and that he's upset things aren't going right because now he has two allies. Jang says if he uses the two to stop any incident at school, it will be like taking candy from a child, asking Kim to just give up and undo the curse. But it wasn't as simple as Jang thought. In a fit of madness, Kim's soul begins to laugh non-stop. She questions what was said about using his allies to end the incidents at school, but she never said that the incidents that ruined her life only happened at school. Kim asks if Jang doesn't remember because he knows very well that they don't just bother at school. Jang then enters into despair and asks if the first incident happened outside of school. But the voice of the soul obviously doesn't confirm this and advises to prevent the incident if he can. Kim walks down the sidewalk, nervous about what just happened. He huffs in anger and questions this first incident that didn't happen at school. Because if it wasn't at school, where would it be? Because in high school, all he did was spend his time training. Kim confirms this when he sees that his old self is going to the gym and wonders if he'll have to monitor him there too. If he acts carelessly and gets caught, the story will change, but he can't send Sim Mingyu to the gym. Park Dabin also can't help him there, so Kim has no choice but to continue with what he's doing. The protagonist thinks this is all hell and questions what the voice of the soul wants him to do. Kim gets the idea to hide his face and shows up at the gym to register with a mask. The coach asks if his name is Striking Hand, and our hero confirms. That coach questions if Kim is a YouTuber or something similar, and if he will help promote his gym, but the protagonist denies. The receptionist, in turn, asks if this is his first time training, which when confirmed, responds by praising the decision. Kim thinks he hasn't seen an acquaintance of his in a long time. Before, when he knew nothing but knockouts, he made him a pro in ground combat. So he decides to train a bit and monitor his past self. But Jang isn't there yet, and Kim tries to find something to pass the time. Suddenly, two people excuse themselves and ask the newcomer if he needs any help. Kim is confused but already expects what's coming. One of the men, while smashing him on the ground, asks if that seems cool and informs him that it's the twister technique. With that, Jang remembers that this gym is where all the bullies meet. When he was Jang Enshul, the men were mere sheep. This brunette was the biggest of them, but now that he's in this body, everything is different. Being crushed on the ground, the protagonist stays silent and another nerd pleads for mercy, claiming he's already tapped out on the mat to surrender. This man is Sul, who for some reason also wants to learn to fight, but is suffering mistreatment even outside of school. Witnessing this injustice, our hero quickly breaks free from the man's hold and runs towards Sul, leaving the fighter confused by the ease with which the skinny one escaped his technique. In front of his friend, Kim begins to reflect on what's happening. Sul, who just wants to live a normal and peaceful life, is once again asking for help. Kim remembers everything his friend is going through and all his struggles. And while his friend suffers from the bully's hold, Kim clenches his fists and decides to intervene. The man asks what he's looking at and if he wants to be next. But our masked hero orders the fighter to leave immediately, which confuses him. Kim then extends his hand to Seal and curses the fighter again, telling him to leave the boy alone. Amidst the events, the voice of the soul emerges, praising Jang's decision. For now, he's finally on the right path. The first incident actually involves Sul, but it wasn't possible that Jang helped him knowing this beforehand because it was very unlikely that the delinquent would really remember what had happened. The blue-shirted fighter states he's already released Sul and asks what the masked man will do now. Sul, while adjusting his glasses, thanks the masked man for his help, saying he's moved by the situation, which makes Kim regret having taken the initiative to help him. Kim wonders why he did that, and Sul would like to know the name of his hero. But the blue-shirted fighter interrupts them, calling Kim a loser and starting a confrontation against him. With a punch from the man coming towards him, Jinwoo notices that the blow is strange. In fact, that punch was very slow, and the fighter's movements were heavy. Dodging his punch, the fighter is discredited because he didn't expect that to happen. With that, Jang arrives at the scene, asking what all this mess is later. Seul thanks his masked hero for the help. And Kim changes the subject, asking Seul how long he's been training at the gym. The student states he's been training there for a month, but the hero finds it strange because he doesn't remember him from that place, and asks if Seul came there to get revenge on Jang Enshul, which is confirmed and leaves Kim confused because he was sure he would remember such an event. Then he comments to his friend that Jang seems not to recognize him, and Seul states that such a situation should not be possible, because in his mind he's very different from the group of athletes and gymnasts, yet the appearance of his colleague was exactly like those boys. But cutting the conversation short, the student states he has something important to say, which piques the protagonist's curiosity. Seul asks what the man thinks about putting Pinkman as his hero name, but he cuts him off, saying it's better to stop talking and go exercise. In his mind, Kim thought that Nerd had gone far to get revenge on him, even attending MA classes, and wonders if he was so wrong because he only liked to tease others innocently. But before his eyes, he observes his old self mistreating someone for no reason. Everyone is uncomfortable but afraid, trying not to show it to Jang. But he starts jumping rope while trying to cover for himself, saying he didn't see anything. But a girl interrupts his thoughts, poking him in the back. This girl is Park, who excitedly asks if our hero is new here and if he's a masked cosplayer. Kim then remembers that his Nuna also frequents that gym. Among the Nuna, Shalala from the gymnastics group is the girl our protagonist likes, Sha Yujin. Sha tells Kim that if the kids bother him, he should report it, and she will scold him. Our hero thought that a while ago, the reason he came to the gym was precisely because of this Nuna. And the present Jang, witnessing this conversation of his beloved with our protagonist, comments that it's very annoying. Suddenly someone approaches, drawing Kim's attention. The man apologizes for earlier and asks if the masked man can use these training gloves. He comments that he needs to train his low kick, but that no one is available, and Kim realizes that the man wants him as his practice partner. Our hero doesn't understand what's happening but accepts, asking if he just has to hold. Upon confirmation, Kim prepares to receive a low kick, but the fighter craftily delivers a high kick. He then starts laughing along with his blue-shirted friend who finds the situation hilarious. However, our protagonist manages to receive the attack on his pad with precision, having defended himself from that cowardice. This angers the fighter, wondering how he could block such a blow and questioning if the masked man really knows how to fight. In light of this fact, Kim questioned the man's low kick that came at the height of his head, but thought it would be better just to ignore. Embarrassed, the fighter believes the masked man doesn't know how to discern what is a low kick or a high kick, having been startled for a moment. Butting into the conversation, the blue-shirted one says he should teach him by landing a low kick on the back of Kim's calf, which knocks him to the ground. The two bullies start laughing at the situation of our hero while commenting that the blow was just like the ones Anshul used to do. The white-shirted one says he heard that Anshul's slap was perfect, and the blue-shirted one states they'll need to be careful with that. After the incident, Che appears, asking if those two were mistreating the masked man, but they deny it, stating they were just teaching the low kick. She tries to help Kim with his injury, asking if she should get a compress and stating she had already asked them to go easy on newcomers. Despite everything that's happening, Kim thinks he's feeling great. But suddenly a deafening noise takes over the place. The noise was from Jang's hand, very annoyed, hitting a punching bag. Kim notices his past self looking at him intently and wonders what he will do about it. Yet our hero believes he has realized something because now he is Kim Jinwoo and there were no reasons for his new men to be so friendly with him. The protagonist questioned if the small and skinny body was her type and if that was the reason why it didn't work out for him in the past. But Cho wasn't just helping Kim, which irritates him because she is nice to everyone. Sue claimed that at first he didn't intend to marry, but that decision was changing because of the woman. Because of this, both the past and future Jang are furious with Sue, who is taking advantage of the situation. But Cha calls our hero to stretch his friend, making him happy to be with his beloved. She says the fighter is a good boy and very cheerful. Kim thinks they are getting close. The girl says she will take a shower and the protagonist almost invites himself to join while Jang just observes the whole scene. He approaches the fighter in the white shirt while the man asks Anshul how he can help, but receives a powerful blow to his stomach that leaves him breathless. Jang orders his colleague to transmit and in great pain he understands the command. The man calls for the masked fighter and asks him to look at the ceiling, making our hero curious and distracting him. In an act of cowardice, the fighter landed the same blow he received on Kim's belly, causing considerable damage. The man claimed that now it is passed to him, and if the masked one is dissatisfied, he could just pass it to the pig next to him. He continues saying that's why one should not irritate Anshul and asks if the protagonist has any problem with that. Our hero holds back from doing anything, but Anshul provokes him from atop the ring, calling him to come up, and asks from which school he is to be acting this way because it doesn't seem to be his. Because if it were from his school, then there would be no way not to know him. Kim in turn realizes that Jang does not recognize him at the moment and has an idea. Leaving Jang surprised, the masked one climbs into the ring and starts putting on his gloves. Kim understands that by wearing a mask people can't recognize him, and meanwhile the fighters are discredited with the decision of the newcomer. Our hero asks Anshul to put on the face protection because now he will hit him a lot without reason. The coach yells asking what the newcomer is doing. After seeing that Anshul put a guy who entered today straight into the ring, he asks him to come down immediately, calling him an idiot. But Jang doesn't understand what the problem is because he says he's just helping to teach the boy, which makes the coach not know how to deal with it. Jang was just a street bully, but the coach saw potential in him and brought him there. But instead of starting over, the delinquent is acting as if the gym was his. While delivering a punch to our hero, Jang thinks he must finish this quickly before things become problematic. Kim thinks that with this punching strength, if it hits him, it will be like a goodnight Cinderella for him. Then our masked hero promptly dodges the blow, leaving Jang surprised. The bully didn't understand anything that happened, and the other fighters were equally surprised. Anshul began to think about the newcomer having dodged his blow, but comes to the conclusion that his punches are being read. But this is obvious logic since the man in the pink mask is actually Jang in the future. Our protagonist can see through all the delinquent's habits, both good and bad. After dodging, Kim goes behind the man, mocking him. Then Anshul tries to land another blow on the masked one while cursing him, but his hands only hit the air. And Kim remembers that in the past his self from this time was an amateur athlete with a completely offensive fighting style. But his future self mastered the stand-up fighting style, becoming a professional athlete with a grappling-oriented fighting style. Everyone in the place is moved, witnessing the masked man's takedown attempt, but they notice that Anshul easily stops the advance. The delinquent mocks the protagonist, saying that it seems he has no options to try to take him down and that the masked one doesn't know the difference in strength between the two. But Kim moves behind the bully and affirms that he knows very well after all this cannot happen. Cornered by the newcomer, Jang is surprised by the man's audacity, but is completely defenseless for being caught in a technique called full Nelson. Even though Jiu-Jitsu doesn't have this technique, Kim did it at this moment just to humiliate his opponent. With all his strength, Jang tries to free himself from the hold, but his efforts are fruitless. Kim says that even though the delinquent is strong, he still can't stop this because the technique controls his center directly, allowing him to swing him as he wishes. Jang realizes that his new mate is witnessing the fight, but that loser won't leave him alone. In an act of desperation, the delinquent orders people to stop laughing and thinks he can't do anything now, but the moment he is released, he will finish the masked one. In such a case, Kim really frees him from the position he had held him in, leaving Jang disoriented. And saying he's bored, he again calls Anshul to fight. Moreover, he said he would help the delinquent to recover. However, Jang, realizing that the masked one let him go on purpose, gets deeply irritated, affirming that he will do everything in his power to finish the newcomer. He goes after our hero, grabbing him by the waist in an attempt to take him down. And everyone at the place starts to think that now Anshul has the advantage in the fight. One of the fighters comments that the masked one is in guard, so it's good that they keep watching, but another states that our hero is already finished. The coach, on the other hand, states that Anshul is actually at a disadvantage, which leaves everyone surprised without understanding how. In response, he asks to look at the boy's legs that are squeezing tightly and pulling towards himself. The way is if Anshul relaxes, he will end up receiving a submission. If he tries to punch, he will lose posture and fall, and when he's on the ground, the boy will move on to another move. Jang understood that his opponent just humiliated him, decided to fall on purpose, and that it's as if he were in a spider's web. Kim, in turn, asks the bully to tap out because he can't win. This leaves the delinquent confused because his beloved is watching the fight. However, Jang needs to recover his pride and gets up from the ground with anger. He thinks that jiu-jitsu doesn't matter and that he is stronger anyway. Kim praises his old self for having a lot of strength and is happy, but he wraps his legs around Anshul's hamstring, taking him down to the ground and saying that first he must know how to use it. Witnessing this monster in the ring, the coach wonders who the man is and that although Jang is weak on the ground, this guy's techniques are as good as an athlete's. Kim applies an arm triangle choke and questions if Jang believes he can win using only strength. And after that, he kisses the bully on the cheek, which makes Chip start to smile and embarrasses Jang. Not stopping at this humiliation, Kim dominates Jang in various other ways, such as in the frog position. Jang realizes that his opponent is doing all of this on purpose and is using these positions just to toy with him. Then Kim remembers he has something to return to Ankle, the chokehold, for no reason. Jang understood that his opponent could have finished everything easily, but still preferred to humiliate him in front of everyone. Kim asks if the bully won't hit him, but he keeps thinking that his beloved is watching. While choking him on the ground, Jinwoo comments that since it is Jang, the bully probably won't give up even if it costs his life. He then mentally apologizes to his past self, while all the fighters watch the scene in disbelief. Finishing the fight, our masked hero could no longer suppress his strength and left his opponent unconscious on the ring floor. After the fight, Kim thought that since his body was very weak, he won by using the chokehold, but his past self was much stronger. However, even so, losing in front of Nuna was definitely something Jang would never forget. Feeling a bit bad, Kim leaves the ring. Later, the person receiving the chokehold was Kim in the school classroom. Jang was deeply irritated by what happened at the gym and started taking it out on Jinwoo, who regretted feeling bad for him. The bully believes the masked body's build is similar to Kim's, and our hero realizes that Jang has become more brutal than before. Suddenly, Simpson enters the room asking what is happening with Jang and about the events at the gym. However, without giving him a chance to say anything else, Ankle lands a punch to Simpson's stomach and tells the student not to talk to him, calling him a bastard. Agonizing in pain on the ground, Simpson praised the punch he received and confirmed that his big brother was getting the hang of it. Faced with this, all the students were curious about what happened and began trying to calm Jang down. Kim's soul voice, in turn, comments that our hero's decision will affect him negatively. For even though he didn't change history by being masked compared to the past, at present Jang Anchol is much more nervous than ever. With a padlock between his glasses, Sul greets Jang with a smile as he walks towards him. And when Anshul asks Sul to get up, the first event of Loser Life finally begins. Looking at his hands, Jang finds it strange to be in his original body and wonders if he is back. But he quickly realized that his past self completely erased him again, and somehow he already knew this bastard was crazy. The soul voice approaches, asking if that is funny, questioning the act of suffocating people for no reason until they pass out. Jang tries to apologize, asking why Kim is so serious, but the soul says Anshul should not be so relaxed, informing that the first incident has just begun. A TV without signal is placed in front of our protagonist, who doesn't understand what is coming. Suddenly, a program called Loser Life starts playing. In the program, it is said that even in terrible conditions, flowers bloom. And that's how Seulgi and Kim formed their relationship. Seulgi was a resilient boy because despite being tormented day after day, he never lost his smile. And Kim admired him for this, giving him the strength to survive the bullies. They supported each other and were best friends, so as long as he had Seulgi, no matter what happened, Kim could overcome it. However, one day Jang approached his friend, who received him with a smile as usual. On this day, Jang stated that he was jealous of their friendship, which made Seul curious, prompting him to explain that this friendship was created by Anshul. Faced with this, Jang asked the two friends to fight each other, and whoever won would escape the loser squad. That man was certainly a true demon, because this way it would be much easier to mess with them and more effective. All the class students bet on the fight between Kim and Seul. On this day, Kim did not want to fight and wondered why he had to hit his best friend. However, unexpectedly, Seulgi hit him first. He called him a loser and proudly stated that he would beat Kim to escape the beatings. Seul's betrayal made Kim's blood boil because he did not want to fight and had even challenged Jang Anshul. After that, he no longer remembered what happened, other than using his fists like a madman. At the end of the fight, Kim Jinwoo won, and from then on, he would no longer be a loser. However, after the fight ended, he realized. At no point did Seulgi fight back, and for his sake, he just took the beating silently, accepting his fate. After that, they never hit Kim again, but they tormented Seul daily. Later, Kim deeply regretted what he did to his friend, and Jang Anshul became more and more outraged, taking his anger out on Seul. However, the most revolting thing of all was that deep down, Kim thought it was a relief. During the break, Seul comforted Jinwoo, saying that he was not to blame and therefore did not need to feel bad. However, he could no longer look his friend in the face while saying this. Seul stated that he would debut as a light novel author and become very famous, and one day he would let Kim read his works. However, now he was ashamed but did not stop encouraging Kim to pursue and achieve a dream. But the smile that was once permanent on his friend's face had disappeared. So that notebook was Seulgi's pride and weakness. He did not want to show it to anyone, no matter who it was, and was able to endure everything just because of his dream. But one day, the delinquents made him read the notebook aloud in front of everyone. And those people were not mocking Seulgi's novel, but him himself. Afraid of Jang Anshul, Kim did everything he was told to do. Even though he knew this was his friend's vulnerability, he began to expose it word by word. The classroom students had no compassion and mocked Seul's dream in front of him. Finally, the one who always remained a strong person stopped coming to school. Then the adults intervened due to reports from parents of mistreatment in the classroom. On this day, the teacher asked everyone to close their eyes, and Kim saw hope. The teacher asked the students to point to who tormented Seul, and Kim thought that with the power of adults he could punish Jang. The student desperately tried to gather the courage to accuse the bully, and he thought he wanted to take his revenge there and then, but pathetically, his hands did not move. So he left it to his classmates to take revenge for him because everyone had seen who did this to Seulgi. However, when they opened their eyes, all the students shamelessly accused Kim, and his wish did not come true due to the many fingers pointing at him. Kim then became the culprit instead of the victim. Everyone knew it was much easier to incriminate him than Jang himself. So Kim was labeled a delinquent on his school record and failed the university interview despite having good grades. His school record became entirely useless and all he did was study, but even so, he could not enter college. His life then started going wrong this way, and this was the beginning of the first incident. However, the saddest part of all was that because of Jang, Kim lost his only and best friend. Then the soul's voice stated that if Jang wanted to go back, he should prevent the incident that ruined everything. Already in the classroom, Kim understood the entire unfolding of the first incident and appeared to be sad. But Jang interrupts him as informed by the original Kim's memories, ordering the two to fight each other. This was the first time Jang saw his past self as a true villain, and the first incident begins. Jang orders the two friends to fight each other, but Kim has a vacant expression. Jang explains that whoever wins will escape his torments. In his thoughts, Kim remembered that originally Jinwoo won the fight and Seul continued to be massacred. In that case, if Seul beats him and he passes out, it is natural that his friend would come out as the winner. So while his friend's rescue approaches, Kim just wishes that Seul would hit him. This way, the first incident will be resolved. However, unexpectedly, our hero lands a powerful punch on Seul's face, knocking him out immediately, making him celebrate among everyone because despite everything, Kim still has Jang's pride and cannot let a nerd beat him. The soul's voice, witnessing such a situation, thinks that our hero is a son of a bitch, and that even the devil disapproves of the action. Later, Kim wondered why he did that because it was with such force that he won without realizing it. But as in his memories, Seul comforts him, saying it's not his fault, and that the real culprit is Jang Anshul. But since Kim is Jang's soul, inevitably, he also feels offended. Kim, in turn, asks if his friend will stop going to school because of a nonsense like that. And Seul laughs, saying of course not, because he is sure that if he doesn't come, the one who will suffer will be our hero. Jinwoo thinks that this is a relief and praises his friend for being so resilient. Seul confirms with a smile, saying he is good at dealing with these things, so Jinwoo can relax. Later in the cafeteria, the bullies throw a tray of food in the student's face. Stimson calls him a shitty otaku and asks if he doesn't know that Antle doesn't usually eat cucumber. Gathered on the floor, Sue tries to explain, informing that the day's meal is seasoned cucumber, so it's impossible not to have cucumber. But Simpson maintained his criticism, saying that Antle started disliking cucumber now, and as Antle's servant, he should have analyzed this in advance. From afar, Kim notices that the bullies are bothering his classmate. However, despite them exaggerating, there's nothing he can do because if he decides to interfere, the story will change. Moreover, Kim thinks it sucks to have to worry about Sewell, but as long as he continues coming to school, the incident probably won't happen. Jang says it's okay if Sulji shows remorse, but spraying food like this on the school floor is wrong. So the bully ordered the student to eat all the food that was thrown at him. Kim is disturbed by hearing what they are planning to do, and meanwhile, the delinquents enjoy this situation. But Sewell says he is allergic to cucumbers, but Simpson doesn't want to hear it, and kicks the boy's face, saying that from this day on he likes cucumbers, and questions if Sewell prefers to eat the cucumbers after getting beaten by him or after getting beaten by Anshul. With that, Sewell picks a seasoned cucumber from the floor and starts chewing, making the bullies happy. Kim, in turn, watches in disgust and tries to convince himself that he doesn't care about what's happening, and that he just needs to focus on returning to his original body. Later in the classroom, Simpson asked his Lord Judge what he thought of his model. Jang said he was definitely glamorous while the students laughed nonstop. The students wondered who made the shirt and another said that Sewell could become a member of the K-House. Kim thinks that the people are excited and that honestly, those aren't really mistreatments. Because Sulji likes attention, so he is enjoying it, and it doesn't matter if the physical education clothes are torn because he isn't getting beaten. Moreover, in Kim's mind, Sewell is popular with the girls despite them blatantly cursing him. Interrupting the presentation, the student asks Mingyu when the contest will end, and Simpson informs that it will end when he cries, slapping the boy's face. Kim then realizes that things aren't exactly as he thinks and that Sewell is really suffering from those students. However, Jang begins to get tired of mistreating the boy because as it becomes routine, he no longer reacts the way they want. In that case, Simpson asks what Anshul will do to handle this situation, and Jang asks them to remove Sewell's clothes, leaving our hero in shock. The bullies go after the boy, trying to remove his clothes, and he tries to resist. But Sewell doesn't have enough strength to defend himself and is completely subdued in his aggressor's hands. However, Jang starts to laugh at that atrocity and Kim, observing his former self this way, begins to reflect. Later in the school parking lot, Sewell thanks for the company and asks if it's a special day, but Jinwoo says the boy doesn't need to know that. However, Kim asks if his friend is still calm, which confuses him. He doesn't know how to put his words and sums up by saying, just don't think about doing anything stupid. In his mind, Jinwoo thought that it was complicated because for him to stop the incident, he needed to take care of this otaku. Breaking the tension, Sewell approaches and hugs our hero, thanking him for everything. But Kim doesn't understand why his friend doesn't hold a grudge against him and still treats him well. Because instead of resentment, he is looking at him understandingly, without even knowing he is being used. Kim wonders if his friend actually likes to suffer, but considers the possibility of him just being a damn pervert. However, after Jinwoo leaves the place, Sulji sits on the staircase alone and cries for several hours. This was something very complicated for our hero, who no longer knew what to do. Sewell thought he didn't want to go to school anymore and wondered what he had done wrong to be so mistreated. Considering taking his own life, he thinks it would be easier instead of living this way. Suddenly someone appears asking why Sewell is crying. That someone was the man who saved him, the masked man from the fighting gym. No time to cry, the masked man says it's time to get strong, and that he will turn Sewell into a powerful fighting machine. Our video ends here. If you like it, leave your like. See you next time. Bye-bye.